I had come to terms with, if I did lose my baby right here, regardless of what happened, I needed to turn my life back around. So my name is Shannon Taylor. When I hit my teenage years, I kind of, started experimenting with things in high school, and I pretty much chased a high. I got involved with some guys who were gang members. I did smoke marijuana and I drank often. A lot of my friends got arrested. There was an incident where I was being chased in a car by somebody who was shooting a gun. It had a void I was trying to fill. Basically anything to make me feel completed or wanted in the moment. I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome. You'll have irregular menstrual cycle and you'll have cysts on your ovaries. You won't be able to conceive, and if you do, you won't make it past the first trimester. Whenever I was 20, I started having some dark episodes, and I went through a period where I hated myself. It was kind of like a breaking point where I felt like I couldn't take life anymore. I was very hateful. My family didn't want me around because it was like the moment I walked through the door, I'd slam something, I'd make hateful comments. I had an issue with self-harm. Eventually my mom told me, we're not doing this anymore, you need help. And I went to a psychiatrist and he told me that I had borderline personality disorder. I did therapy and I got put on medication. My psychiatrist found out I was not on birth control, and he told me that the side effects of the mood stabilizer I was on is very dangerous for babies in the womb, that it would cause severe birth defects. They tell me I can't get pregnant, it doesn't matter, but he told my mom that if I didn't get some type of birth control or Mirena or something, that he was not going to prescribe me any more medication. And so I went. She left the room to go get a nurse and to get the procedure ready, and I had to go to the bathroom. So I stepped out. On my way, a nurse handed me a Dixie cup and told me that she wanted a urine sample and to give it to her, don't put it in the metal door. And so I was like, okay, this is weird, but I did it anyway. So I gave her the urine sample in the Dixie cup and I went back to my room, and my nurse came in and told me, when the doctor comes in, you need to tell her we have to wait because I believe you're pregnant. I started sweating bullets. I felt dizzy. I didn't even know what to think. And when my doctor came in, I told her. She said that nurse was wrong. She never ordered a pregnancy test for me. I can't get pregnant. There's something, they've got me confused with somebody else. So I did a blood test, and sure enough, I was pregnant. She went white and she was like, you were on this mood stabilizer, like you cannot be pregnant. And so she started showing me pictures and like these pamphlets they have about your baby's gonna be born with no brain, half a skull, holes in her heart, lungs, spina bifida, and the list just kept going on and on. I was already considered high-risk pregnancy because of the polycystic ovarian syndrome, and so then with this mood stabilizer, it made me like really high risk. And so I saw multiple doctors gently be like, and in this situation, abortion is best recommended. This baby doesn't have a chance. You're going to bring into the world a child who will not live. You're going to bring in a child who's going to have special needs that you're going to have to pay for. You're a single mom. You're going to have to do it on your own. Unless they were saying your baby would be born with and giving me a birth defect to go with it, my child was referred to as tissue. Not even fetus, tissue. They didn't expect I would make a full pregnancy. They had already predicted that I wouldn't make it past the 3rd month. I didn't believe in abortion growing up, but then once I found out I was pregnant, it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. You need to get your life right with God. I just knew growing up, I knew everything that was said. I've read the Bible. I knew all the miracles that were in it. I repented and I told God, will you please save my baby? I kind of played church. I played being saved. I went to church and I read my Bible and I prayed, but it was because I was filled with so much like anxiety about, my child's health that I felt like if I don't stick to it, I know he's not going to answer me. And so then I found out she was forming correctly and developing and was on track. Then I was like, well, I'm working 3 jobs. I'm too exhausted to get up Sunday to go to church. I found every excuse to not be about God. When I was 21 weeks pregnant, I was experiencing pressure. I called up to the nurse hotline and told them what I was experiencing, and they told me because I was high risk, I needed to go to the hospital right away. They told me I was having contractions almost every 4 minutes, and I was almost dilated to a 6. Finally, the doctor came in and she told me I had a shortened cervix, which is what caused my early labor. And so we had asked, can't you give me medicine to stop the contractions? Isn't there anything else you can do? And she said it wasn't protocol because it's not a baby until 24 weeks. All we can do is help deliver the tissue. And I thought that what she meant by that was I would give birth, and if I had a stillbirth, then we'd move forward, and if it was a live birth, then we'd put her in an incubator. She'd go to NICU, and really she was prepping me for a partial birth abortion. And so we weren't okay with that, and we told them, you need to leave the room. I wanted to pray, and I realized that I've already done this before, and after I got what I wanted, I turned my back on God, and I didn't even, thank him for my food half the time. I just kind of was like, oh yeah, you did me a solid, and I moved on. And at that point in time, I told my mom, I broke down and I said, Mom, I didn't do this right. And she agreed with me and got the congregation involved in praying for me. But at the time I was praying, God, forgive me. And I had come to terms with, if I did lose my baby right here, it's not his fault. He in the first place never caused any of this. Even if she were to be born without a brain and all I could do was just deliver her body and just to be able to look at her, to me that was well worth it than to just terminate the pregnancy. To me, that's just not the answer. She was like a part of me. I knew that regardless of what happened, I needed to turn my life back around. The doctor and the nurses came back and they said, we're getting ready to start. A nurse said that she heard the situation of what was going on, and she recommended they send us to the Avera McKinnon Hospital in Sioux Falls because they have a ward for high-risk pregnancies. And the doctor told her it wasn't protocol, and they kind of argued a little bit back and forth, and eventually the nurse left. And so then the doctor turned to us, and then we tried to argue with her some more. If somebody else is saying that there's somebody who could possibly do something different for me, why aren't we doing that? And we again heard, it's not a baby yet. It's not protocol to try and do anything else. We fought it for as long as we could, and then she just said, we have to do this now. And right as they, approached my bed, this other nurse came just running in saying she called the Avera McKinnon Hospital. They agreed to accept me. She's already got an ambulance waiting downstairs for me, and she just unhooked me from the wall, from the IV bag hanging up, and just before anybody could say anything, was already wheeling me down the hallway. And so I got in the ambulance and I went to Sioux Falls. And when I got there, they told immediately, first thing they did was, give me medicine to stop the contractions. And they said that if I could make it through the night without delivering, that we would get some tests done to make sure there wasn't any signs of infection, and we would move forward. And about 6 o'clock that morning, the doctor came in and I had tests done. They told me I was clear, there was no infection, and so he was going to put a cerclage in, which is they took this thick twine kind of stuff, and they sewed my cervix. They strapped me to a bed and they tilted it so my head was about this far off the ground, and there's big lights in my face and all these people running around, and I could see all the tools, and I was panicked. But then I, talked to God, and I fell asleep, and I woke up a couple hours later to the bed lowering. At that point, they told me, the baby's probably not going to make it to 24 weeks inside. You'll have to stay in this hospital until you deliver. When she comes, we'll put her in an incubator. She'll stay in the NICU until she's old enough to leave. They couldn't really guarantee what her health would be like afterwards. Then after being there for a week and all my exams and stuff, they told me that I could go home, and I was supposed to come back every week for checkups. And then it ended up that they told me it was wasted time and money to come visit or to come do my checkups, so they kept moving my checkups later and later, and then eventually they told me that I was put on bed rest for 4.5 months, and so they told me that my bed rest could be lightened. They told me not to come back until my stitches came out, which was at 36 weeks, and I ended up carrying her till 39 weeks, which is full term, and I had just a normal birth, and it was a great experience. I was in labor for 12 hours, but otherwise didn't have any complications, and after she was born, they said there's nothing wrong with her. I have some struggles just because I'm a single parent. I didn't realize it would be such a big thing for somebody to be potty trained, whenever first steps, even just drinking out of a regular cup, like that brings so much joy to my life. And I feel like I want to be a better person for her, because I want to encourage her to stay away from the things I never stayed away from, for her to achieve the things I never achieved, for her to be a person that I growing up wasn't. Everything I do for her to be a better mother for her is in some way glorifying God, and part of serving God is raising godly children. It's probably the happiest thing of my life, and I find myself sitting back looking at her thinking, wow, that's my kid.